Welcome to the Friday News Dump for September 20th, 2013. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. Behind the camera, we have the lovely Deborah Goodwin.
Yay, it's actually Friday we're doing it.
Yeah, which is a beautiful thing. Thanks for joining us. U.S. stocks fell today, sending benchmark indexes to their biggest decline since August, as concerns grew about the timing of Federal Reserve stimulus cuts and political wrangling over government spending. The Standard & Poor's 500 index fell 0.7% to 1709 in New York. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 171 points, or 1.1% to 15,465.
Can I ask a question? But I thought that they said that the Fed wasn't going to stop the quantitative easing.
They're not.
So why is the market tanking?
You are trying to apply logic and reason to the stock market. The stock market does not permit logic and reason. That's not how it operates.
Partly, I think that there was built into the markets before the announcement was an expectation that the Fed was going to begin tapering. So when they announced they didn't taper, there was a quick jump for a day.
Yeah, and then
24 hours.
And then they recalibrated
back
to readjust the expectations, right? So that now what we're seeing, and then of course there's everything else going on in the world. But part of it was,
I understand.
It was a little bit off expectations.
Poor babies.
So it might be said that the Fed made a right decision. Obviously, the economy is still somewhat fragile, right?
Well, the thing is that those people live in a bubble in which the economy is defined by, the Dow and the stock market, and in actuality, not so much. It is part of it, but it is not all of it.
That's certainly true.
They just have an overinflated view of their own importance.
The so-called quantitative easing, which is huge purchases of, they print money, then they buy bonds, like mortgage securities and whatnot on these mortgages. Really, that's propping up the market. That's the thing that's propping up the market. On one level, it's really successful so far. It's just a matter of if they can get out of it.
But it's a castle built on sand. Sooner or later, it's
Like
going to come down around their ears again, and we'll have to bail their sorry asses out.
There's another element to this that nobody really talks about, which is the Federal Reserve is just creating money that they're giving themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just going to say that it's all, the quantitative easing stuff has only benefited Wall Street and traders.
Yep.
And
that's all it was intended to benefit.
Very wealthy.
The rest of us can take a long walk off a short plank. They don't care.
Right. But supposedly, well, never mind. I'm not going to go into an economics lecture, of which I know nothing.
I don't know much.
Except I ain't got none. Anyway.
Both gauges dropped the most since August 27th, retreating for a second day after reaching a record September 18th.
Syria today gave details of some of its chemical weapons to the arms watchdog at The Hague. But it still needs to fill in gaps by next week to launch a rapid disarmament operation that may avert U.S. airstrikes. The Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, or the OPCW, is the UN-backed agency that is to oversee the removal of President Bashar al-Assad's arsenal. An agency spokesman said, "We have received part of the verification and we expect to get more." She did not say just exactly when this missing from the, what was missing, pardon me, from the document that the UN diplomat described as quite long. The OPCW's 41-member Executive Council is to meet early next week to review Syria's inventory and to agree on implementing last week's U.S.-Russia deal to eliminate the entire arsenal within 9 months.
The Obama administration today announced first-ever regulations setting strict limits on the amount of carbon pollution that can be generated by any new U.S. power plant. The proposed regulations quickly sparked a backlash from supporters of the coal industry and are certain to face legal challenges. Mm-hmm. The Environmental Protection Agency's long-awaited guidelines would make it nearly impossible to build coal plants without using technology to capture carbon emissions that foes say is unproven and uneconomical.
And the foes can take a long walk off that same short plank, because that is nonsense. They've had that technology since the 70s, but they just didn't want to spend the money to install it. They were called scrubbers. And it was all an issue because of the fact that, you know, high mountain areas in New York and in Vermont have seen trees at their highest elevations just die because of, you know, acid rain and the rest of this stuff. And it's all a result of coal pollution. But if they had put those scrubbers in there when it was a damn sight cheaper 30 or 40 years ago, they wouldn't be running into this problem now. So, yeah.
Plus, the anti-environment crowd is all up in arms, but this is for coal plants yet to be built.
Bingo. They're
it's
new
not even,
coal plants. It's
you know,
not the
these
existing
are new
ones.
It's like, why wouldn't you, with everything you know, want to build, if you're going to build a stupid coal plant of all things, why wouldn't you do all this to...
But when the rules of corporate governance were rewritten back in the you know, a lot of it was in the 70s, but some was in the 80s. Some of the critical stuff was in the 80s under Reagan. That said, all right, now your first concern is not your customers. Your first concern is your stockholder. And everybody has just dived into that pool, that cesspool there.
I guess it's just amazing to me how, like, the littlest progressive initiative is, like, just vilified and demonized, and everybody gets all like
that's the only way that they feel
like
that
those
they
cartoon
can
characters
make
with
people...
the steam coming out of their ears is what I always picture.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what it is. And they're all steaming piles of the proverbial substance, a bunch of them. So anyway,
I think this, you know, this EPA thing is like, you know, too little, too late. It's just sort of pandering to, you know, Obama's, you know, environmental.
They have sort of forgotten about the fact that, oh, excuse me, you were originally created in order to protect the American populace from these clowns, not to enable them. But that's a topic for another rant someday else. Anyway, back to the news, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, back to the news. Sorry to distract.
BlackBerry Limited warned today that it expects to report a huge quarterly operating loss next week, and that it will cut more than a third of its workforce, rekindling fears of the company's demise and sending its shares into a tailspin. The company has struggled to claw back market share from the likes of the Apple iPhone and Samsung Electronics Company Limited's Galaxy phones. It expects to report a net operating loss of about $950 million to $995 million for the quarter ending August 31st due to write-downs and other factors. The result will put more pressure on BlackBerry to find a buyer. The company said last month it is weighing its options, including an outright sale in the face of persistently lackluster sales to its new smartphones, which run on the BlackBerry 10 operating system.
They need to sell it while they can, while there's still some value, before they have to go bankrupt.
This was
what an amazing story to me. You know, they were so hot.
Once.
Was it 2 years ago?
Well, it was a little more than that, I think, really.
But
But the thing is that for the longest time, you just
Blackberries.
weren't anything. I mean, if you didn't have a BlackBerry. But their management was not into innovation. Their management was into rake it in while we can, and then they said, "Oh, wait, we're getting left in the dust here."
I don't feel sorry for them, or you know, there's no
do I.
need to throw them a benefit or anything. But you know, it's amazing that they could have been the top of the field, and then
they tried to focus on the business niche, like for offices and companies to use for communication devices, which they held on to for a while, but they've even lost that now.
Huh.
Well, they didn't have the foresight and the vision to know that all of those functions that were previously something that they thought was only for the business community, now every teenager in the mall has the exact same functions, but just tailored to, you know, who's going out with whom, whatever else. But, you know, it's the same algorithms as some of those programs, and they just didn't see it coming. It's like way back in the 70s and early 80s, a computer company called Digital in northwestern Massachusetts, the CEO said, "Nobody's ever going to want a personal computer."
Yeah, my father, he used to work for Control Data International, which was, you know, like a rival of IBM's in the 60s and 70s. And they're not around anymore. Same thing. Nobody's going to want a personal computer, you know. And they just didn't go into that. They developed all these big, giant, room-size hardware that's
Big mainframes, you know.
Yeah, big mainframes, exactly.
Shares in Apple and key chip suppliers for its new iPhones rose today as the first day of sales at Apple stores drew long lines. An analyst says the first weekend will likely top the initial sales figures of last year's model. Hundreds of people lined up at Apple stores in cities including Sydney, Tokyo, and New York as Apple launched 2 iPhone models simultaneously for the first time. Analysts have questioned whether the technology of the new top-end 5S is dramatic enough to persuade people to trade up. Many have also questioned whether Apple has priced the new plastic-backed 5C too high to combat cheaper smartphones that use Google's Android operating system.
13 people in Chicago, including a 3-year-old little boy, were shot in a drive-by attack last night. The shooting took place at a public basketball court in Cornell Park in the South Side neighborhood called Back of the Yards. No suspects have been apprehended, and there is no report yet on the condition of the victims.
Bombardier's CS-100 Monday successfully completed its first test flight out of Montreal Mirabel International Airport. Greg, do you have any idea what that is?
Well, Bombardier used to make snowmobiles. Now they've got a flying snowmobile, apparently.
Yes, it's the Santa sleigh. Model CS-100.
Actually, if you're going to
Santa
get
sleigh.
if you want to get technical about it, it's Bombardier. But
Oh,
anyway,
really?
yeah,
It's
Really, that's what
Bombardier.
Yarusian was, or what was his name in Catch-22? He was the Bombardier.
no, and when you're dropping ordnance on somebody's head, then you're a bombardier. But the original French phrase is bombardier, and when it's a surname, you know, if you want to be really pompous about it, you pronounce it that way.
Ah, bien sûr.
Yeah.
Ça va.
Bombings in Baghdad and Shia provinces of Iraq on Sunday killed at least 21 people. Saboteurs blew up an export oil pipeline Sunday in Yemen. Oh, that wasn't me, was it?
I forgot to put my name in there.
Ah, well, that's all my fault. You can read mine.
Okay, it's going to just keep going.
Okay. The Armed Forces of the Philippines Monday launched a helicopter strike against Moro National Liberation Front rebels holed up in part of the city of Zamboanga.
Yeah, Zamboanga.
Zamboanga.
City of light, city of
He
magic.
said Zamboanga.
Philippine Army troops on Tuesday freed dozens of prisoners held hostage in Zamboanga. Oh, and that's spelled differently now. Zamboanga, Wada, Haba Haba, by the Moro National Liberation Front. Nasty people.
Yeah, I know. Egyptian security forces clashed yesterday with militants in the town of Karasa on the outskirts of Cairo, with one member of security forces dead.
The U.S. Federal Reserve announced on Wednesday that it will continue its stimulus program due to concerns about weakening growth, which is what everybody seems to have been reacting to today. Go figure.
It's one of the main factors in the market, and it's kind of perverted in a sense because, you know,
If things are good, then the market tanks.
yeah, it's going the opposite way than you think it would. Yeah. Oh no, if the data's too good, then the Fed's going to taper, so the market goes down. If the data's bad, oh good, the Fed's going to keep pouring money in, so the market goes up. It's really
Counterintuitive.
Well, it's beyond counterintuitive. it's effed up. It's messed up.
Yeah, meanwhile, where's that Dodd-Frank law when we need it?
Oh, right. Oh, yes.
Also, you know, interest rates are so low that retired people and people that are soon to be retired can't get any money on interest on savings. It's a disincentive for anybody to save anything.
Yeah. Do you have Larry Summers coming in the news report?
Well, we had him last week. You know.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, because we did it on Sunday, so we caught that on Sunday night.
Right.
That was a news dump. The way they did it off hours
That was
like
definitely a
That
news
was a classic
dump.
news dump.
Yeah.
Classic
We
news
just
dump.
happened to
That was
catch
the
it.
news dump.
Yeah.
Yeah, and didn't the markets go way up as soon as on Monday, or futures went up over the weekend?
Mm-hmm. At least 27 miners died Sunday in a coal mine collapse in Afghanistan.
Japan on Sunday switched off its last working nuclear reactor for a scheduled inspection with no restart scheduled.
6 people died in a stampede in a bar Sunday following a police raid in the Colombian capital,
Bogota, actually.
Thank you.
Nearly 6,000 people fled Sunday after Mount Sinabung exploded in Indonesia's North Sumatra province.
Mount Cinnabon?
Yeah,
Like-
well, it's not a Cinnabon. It's not a Cinnabon or one of those croissant or one
Because
of
when
those.
you eat those Cinnabons, you feel like you're going to explode too. Silly. I'm sorry. You can cut that out, right?
Yeah, right.
Your insolence will not be forgotten.
Deborah's been on a diet lately. And it's working.
She looks you look marvelous.
Oh my. Do go on.
The Singaporean container ship Sima Sapphire Monday collided with and sank a Vietnamese fishing vessel about 50 nautical miles to the south of Vang Tao, leaving 1 dead.
The Costa Concordia was pulled completely upright on Tuesday from the place where it sank in early 2012 off the coast of Tuscany in Italy.
It was quite an operation. Like they didn't
Oh
think
yeah,
they
it
were
was
gonna be
like
able to
whoa.
do it, and
They've
cost
never heard. That's like trying to
millions of
that's
dollars.
trying to pull an entire city upright. I mean, those things are big.
They said it was some nautical name called buckling or something. I read
Might
that they had to do to get it back upright or bump something. I'm sorry.
It was magic.
It was magic.
It looked like they actually put straps on it and pulled it up from one side, and then they got floats under it and finished it. That's what it kind of looked like. I saw a time lapse over 19 hours in 1 minute, and it was basically kind of.
Yeah. Once they got it past, the certain point, it probably just popped up. Who knows?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, so that's it for the first segment of the Friday News Dump for September 20th, 2013. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford. Behind the camera is the lovely Deborah Goodwin. Coming up next is Gregory Crawford's Weekly Rant. It's going to be a really good one this week, as it usually is. And then stay put or come right back, because we'll be going on with the second segment.
Hi, I'm Greg Crawford with the Friday News Dump, brought to you by World News Trust. Just when you think that the evil psychopaths on the dark side of the aisle in Congress have hit the wall when it comes to staggering stupidity, by Jesus, they kick out the jams, pull out the stops, and go full bore, pedal to the metal, batshit crazy. I'm referring, of course, to the latest circus in the House of Clowns, representatives. Yes, there's the fact that the Republicans are overjoyed at the prospect of shooting themselves in both feet by shutting down the government in order to defund Obamacare, but we'll get to that in a minute. House Republicans began their slow-motion swan dive into the sidewalk by slashing funding for food stamps by $40 billion. Now, something like 1 in 7 Americans rely on SNAP, or the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, in order to keep their children fed. And the vast majority of those dependent on food stamps live in red towns, in red counties, in red states. Owsley County in Kentucky is the poorest county in the country. Half the population desperately needs food stamps just to get by. This county is 98% white and 81% Republican, which means that more than 3/4 of these people voted for the black-hearted bastard that is literally taking the food out of the mouths of their children. And while their children go hungry because of a seething furnace of malice they elected, happily cutting their already meager food budget, they'll probably vote for Hal Rogers again. In 2010, Rogers voted against raising the minimum wage. Now, half his constituents live below the poverty line, and Rogers is working hard to keep them there. Yes, sirree, Bob. Now, that's what I call representing your peeps. Go figure. This doesn't say much for the collective intelligence of a county that consistently re-elects a contemptible jerk who would destroy their lives just to make a political point. But it should clearly demonstrate, even to Tea Party trolls with room temperature IQs, that Republicans in the House of Representatives don't give a rat's ass how hard their lives are, or that they work 3 jobs just to say 10 cents above the poverty line. No, House Republicans are obsessed with the 0.0002% of food stamp recipients that might be robbing the government of $135 a month. Not surprisingly, these same Republicans aren't the least bit concerned about corporate factory farms that regularly defraud the government out of billions of dollars in subsidies every month. If there is any justice in the world, this hateful and malicious vote will cost the Republicans big time at the polls next year. Oh, but justice has been in short supply lately. And then there's the granddaddy of incomprehensible mind-benders. The brain-dead teabaggers in Congress are bound and determined to see to it that those working poor that cannot afford health insurance continue to be deprived of affordable health care. Never mind that each and every one of these sanctimonious scumbags enjoys premium health care at taxpayer expense. The people that they pretend to represent are not deserving of any health care if it is to be subsidized by the government. Yes, the same government that is subsidized by our tax dollars should not be allowed to offer assistance to those forced into dire financial straits by failed Republican economic policies. You see what I mean about mindbenders? Oh, but it gets better. So resolute are these vermin in their deranged quest to kill the Affordable Care Act that they are perfectly willing to cripple the government by shutting it down, even to the point of forcing it to default on its debt payments, thus risking the full faith and credit of the United States. The daily functions of essential agencies will grind to a halt, and the people most hurt by this monumental stupidity will be those least able to weather this savage assault on common human decency. The sadistic sequester has already done irreparable harms to millions of Americans, but now the teabaggers want to pick a fight over raising the debt ceiling just so they can eliminate funding for Obamacare. But that's a price Republicans think we should be happy to pay, so they can stay ideologically pure. They are screeching that Obama should not refuse to negotiate. They conveniently forget that in order to negotiate, both sides have to compromise, and the teabaggers quite proudly refuse to even consider compromising their precious principles. So they expect Obama to do all the compromising, and they should get their own way. Here's a news flash for you, you dirtbags. Malice and mendacity are not principles. They are self-destructive mental aberrations. Now, Republicans have no interest in governing, and they care nothing for the plight of hard-working Americans. They are mean-spirited, self-centered people whose pompous political posturing threatens the entire nation. They are far more concerned with obstructing any legislation that might benefit ordinary Americans, and with pandering to the psychopaths running Wall Street, multinational corporations, and the world's economy into the ground, all for the profit of a few and to the detriment of the rest of us. It is time to take them down before they do more damage than we can ever hope to repair.
And we're back. This is the second segment of the Friday News Dump for September 20th, 2013. That was an incredibly great rant, Greg. You know, I'm just,
Thank you.
You know, sometimes I really can't believe it.
But it's all true. It's all true. Wikipedia says so.
And thank you so much for joining us. We'll continue here. More than 2,000 tourists were airlifted by the Mexican Army Wednesday after floods caused by Hurricane Manuel isolated the resort city of Acapulco, with many tourists and residents stranded. That would suck.
Yeah.
Going on your Mexican vacation to Acapulco and getting hurricaned.
I met some woman at the bat mitzvah 2 weekends ago. She came up to Vermont for her vacation and got stranded at Killington for Irene.
For Irene, you said that.
And not only that, she was like in New York and hearing about the
So
hurricane that was coming into Vermont, into New York.
Oh,
I was like, I'm going to get out of here. There's
Right.
going to be a hurricane. They're going to evacuate us. I'm going to go up to, go. She came up 2 days early or something like that.
Yeah.
And she got stuck here for a week.
Well, there
and a
were
half.
some people that rented one of Michael Freund's houses
Right.
that had the same problem. They thought they were escaping the hurricane.
Right.
You know, they got
Right.
hit with both barrels of it.
Yeah.
At least 58 people are missing after a mudslide caused by Hurricane Manuel buried about 70 people in the Mexican town of Otoyac
What a terrible way to go.
de Alvarez. I don't disagree.
At least 6 people were killed in Ottawa Wednesday when a Via rail train collided with a double-decker OC Transpo bus.
I hate that.
Ouch.
I hate that when that happens.
This is the bad news segment, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is the blood and guts section.
I don't like this segment.
We'll get through
Can we
it.
trim it down?
It's trimmed down.
No, I'm just kidding.
The Philippines today evacuated coastal villages, suspended ferry services, and called in fishing boats as Category 5 Typhoon Usagi approached. This is
Usagi?
yes, this is exciting.
This is exciting stuff.
See?
Into Japan?
Yeah, well,
Japan's gonna get slammed
it's
again?
along all the Western Pacific coast. Basically, it's gonna hit everybody probably.
Was
It's
it
supposed to be a
Philippines?
whopper. It's supposed to be a humdinger. I mean, they call
Category
them
5
typhoons
is-
in the Pacific. They're hurricanes in the Atlantic.
Right.
But they all nasty.
So that was the Philippines we were just talking about.
Oh, the Philippines, Japan, and
Yeah.
whatever
so
else.
it's a typhoon.
Yeah.
Oh, the Philippines, okay.
A typhoon anywhere in the Western Pacific, basically.
Yeah.
Health officials reported on Monday that they found Naegleria fowleri in tap water near New Orleans. Okay, what's that? It marks the first time that the pathogenic amoeba has been detected in U.S. public water supply. Ah, los animales! There we go, that's what it is. So look forward to many cases of amoebic dysentery in New Orleans.
That movie had Tom Cruise in it and Brad Pitt down in New
The
Orleans.
vampire movie?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Interview with the Vampire.
That seems like something like. Ew. It had nothing
I
to
think
do.
lots of people get gastrointestinal distress when they go to New Orleans, but it's not from the amoebas, it's from the eating and the drinking, you know,
No.
like yeehaw.
Yeah, well, this one
Yeah.
is basically little animals are going to really wreak some havoc in your tum tum.
Wasn't I reading that it's in New Orleans? It's open 24/7, or is that no? That's Reno. I mean, you can just drink 24 hours.
Well,
I think
Nevada,
in New Orleans
Nevada,
you can
yeah.
too.
Anywhere in Nevada,
You can walk around the quarter anyway with open cocktails, hurricanes.
You can take them out in the streets.
And there's a lot of people laying
They have
around. looking
drive-in,
like
for God's sake.
A lot of people look like they've been doing that for a long time too. They got some.
I lived in New Orleans. I would drink too.
Oh man, I don't know.
The climate there is just.
I think I'd walk
awful.
out. I'd walk north, I think, or try to. And maybe-
Culture might be weird and cool, but the climate, ugh.
You wear the air.
A gunman opened fire Monday at Washington, D.C.'s Naval Yard, killing 12 people. The gunman also died.
Cadbury Adams Canada Incorporated, Hershey's Canada Incorporated, Nestle's Canada Incorporated, and Mars Canada Incorporated, as well as distributor ITWAL Limited, agreed on Monday to pay more than 23 million Canadian dollars to settle a class action lawsuit.
What
The
is it
suit
about?
alleged price fixing and price maintenance in the Canadian market. Oh, that's not very nice.
It's a candy
The
bar
cr-
scandal.
Candy bar price fixing?
Yeah.
Apparently so. I
You've
mean,
heard.
it doesn't matter what they're selling.
Wow.
They'll figure out a way to screw
23
somebody.
million though. I mean, they give
$23
these-
million
they give
is
these
probably, that's what
fines
we
that are
earned
like-
on our lunch
You
hour.
know, it's like
I know.
to us, it's
Right.
it's like amazing to think of, but
Those companies probably
to,
saw
to those companies, it's like
Yeah.
10 minutes of candy bar sales
probably
or
saw
something
$1
like
trillion
that.
in candy
You
bars
know,
a year or
it's-
something. That's true.
Anyway, slap on the wrist, as they call it.
Abdul Qadir Mullah, the leader of the Bangladesh Jamaat-e-Islami Party,
Very good, honey.
was sentenced to death Tuesday for war
Great.
crimes in the Bangladesh Liberation War in 1971.
They just got around to it, huh?
Wow, was he been
42
on
years.
death row for 42 years?
Well, he was just sentenced, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was
Has he
just
been-
sentenced. He just, they
Yeah,
kept him in a
42
hole for
years.
whatever, you know.
So Cheney
apparently.
and Bush stick around for 42
Yeah.
years. Well,
Gonna get your ass.
It happens, you know. It
It's
does.
possible, it's
Oh, that's
possible.
the point of this story,
Oh,
yeah.
well, it just
From your mouth to...
Yeah, God's ear, right indeed. Okay, the French Parliament moved on Wednesday to ban children's beauty pageants in an attempt to halt what one former minister called the hypersexualization of young girls. Did you hear that, honey boo boo?
Yeah,
Baby,
really.
you know, you're going
Have
to
you
have to
ever
find a
seen
new
that,
line of
Honey
work.
Boo
Once or twice.
Ugh.
But it was just out of, morbid curiosity.
Yeah, really. I've just seen pictures, which is enough.
With a bunch of web-footed pinheads, it's like, ugh. Damn. That's what happens when cousins marry.
Police arrested 14 people yesterday in Singapore in relation to alleged match fixing in football matches, including alleged financier and organizer Dan Tan Seet Ang.
So there you go. 13 people, including, we've already been through this one here, haven't we?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
man, sorry
we
about
have.
that. Yeah. Imperial Petroleum was indicted yesterday in the largest instance of tax and securities fraud in Indiana state history.
A Texas state appellate court yesterday overturned the November 2010 money laundering conviction of former United States House Majority Leader Tom Hay, the Hammer. Right.
You knew it. You
Oh
knew
my
it.
God.
It had to happen.
Yeah.
It had to
Oh,
happen.
you know, what is up with Texas? You know, I wish they would
just fence it off.
secede.
Fence it off
Go
and
ahead,
let them eat
please
each other. You know,
secede,
just
you know?
go.
They're always busting these rock stars in their buses smoking pot. I like,
Get
you know.
rid of Texas, you know, and you know how their slogan is "Don't mess with Texas." I think we should have a, counter slogan: "Get rid of Texas." You know, they're an embarrassment to the rest of the
You know,
country.
I'll bet you half the people there are okay.
Well, there
I
are
know
some that are
people
okay,
that
but if
live
it was
there that are
half, they
okay.
wouldn't be doing this shit. I'll tell you
Say
what.
that, but I don't know. The kooks can kind of like run the asylum kind of thing. It
They
can happen,
kind of do.
you
They're
know.
the loudest
I
ones.
think I told you about. We have friends there, Tad, that they were traveling in Canada, in Western Canada, this summer, and they'd say, "Where are you from?" And they say, "Oh, we're from Dallas," and they're like, "You're kidding! How did you live there? Why would you be in Dallas, Texas?"
We hate you.
Yeah.
Go away.
So, really.
Voters in Rwanda voted in a parliamentary election on Monday, with the Rwandan Patriotic Front of President Paul Kagame achieving a landslide victory. Doesn't sound like anybody was too surprised at that.
Tony Abbott was sworn in Wednesday as the Prime Minister of Australia, together with his ministry.
The United States incarcerates more of its citizens than any other country on earth. The majority of these people are not hardened criminals, though there are plenty of those to be sure. But a pocketful of pot will get you thrown in the slammer for a good long time. Well, good for the private prison companies. You see, the prison companies GEO, MTC, and the biggest one, CCA, all have these ugly little deals whereby the states are contractually obligated to fill the beds, or they have to pay a premium for the empty ones. This means that lower crime rates actually cost taxpayers money. Why, you might ask, didn't the state say, "Now wait just a damn minute"? Here's where it gets interesting. In typically diseased fashion, federal money to police departments is predicated on arrest rates. So if you live in a relatively crime-free area, too bad for you. None of Uncle Sam's moolah for the cops. And the cops don't like that. Protect and serve this. So if you look sideways at a police officer, there's a chance you'll get tased and jailed on trumped-up charges just so he can make his monthly quota. Feel safer now?
This is just such a terrible, terrible story, which we know is true.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, let me do this one, Greg.
Yeah, sure.
iOS 7, the seventh iteration of Apple Incorporated's iOS mobile operating system, was officially released Wednesday. The new operating system includes major changes in the user interface. I already changed my Apple 4 to that.
Oh yeah, you got the new
Yeah.
operating system. Is it better?
It just looks different. It says it has different bells and whistles, so I haven't.
The changes are most of the time in all of these upgrades, and it's just so that they can keep you,
Yeah.
Keep doing and keep
Keep
their
you
employees
obligated.
busy.
Another thing is I don't know how many megs I got of memory. I think it's probably only 8 gigs or something.
Right. But the new ones have like 64 or something like that.
Right, or the nice ones. So what I'm getting at is that the operating system demands more and more of the device. So I think I'm probably topping out. Although
That's right. It's going to break pretty soon because your
Let's-
upgrade is coming up.
it's almost
in
2 years
months.
old, so it's just going to break on
So
itself.
it's just going to break, or so
Right.
you're going to have to go buy the new 5S or the 5C for cheap.
They just stopped working. They send a message from
I know.
Vallis or something, and it breaks on the phone.
From Vallis.
Whatever's doing it,
Look up Vallis PK Dick if you want to know what that reference was.
That's an inside joke, ladies and
It's
gentlemen.
not-
I don't even
Not so
understand
inside,
it.
but-
It's the vast, alive, living information system.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
All right.
what
Well,
it stands
you're
for.
basically saying that the internet has become self-aware.
Yeah, I guess it's not vast alive. It's something.
Okay.
Because
Array.
living would be redundant.
Whatever. Whew. Congress has narrowly averted a helium shortage. A federal helium storage facility was scheduled for shutdown, but that would have caused a worldwide helium shortage. Bad for birthday balloons and people who want to sound like munchkins. But helium is also essential to many high-tech manufacturing processes, as well as the operation of numerous medical devices like the magnetic resonance imaging, or MRIs. Helium is a naturally occurring element that cannot be synthesized. Who knew?
Ken Norton, a boxer who was one of the few to defeat Muhammad Ali, died Wednesday. He was 70 years old. I remember watching that on TV.
Oh, I didn't know Ken had died.
Wednesday. You heard it here first.
Damn, that's too bad. Our sun is having one of its periodic hissy fits and throwing coronal mass ejections all over everywhere. Yeah, so? When these highly charged particles reach Earth, they can wreak some serious havoc with the communications satellites, sometimes destroying them. Solar flares have even caused widespread failures in the electrical grid, causing massive blackouts. They can also have an adverse effect on cell phone signals, which means no more angry birds. Ha! Now I got your attention.
No more angry birds.
Researchers have been studying ways to improve protection for sensitive satellite systems. Unfortunately, we can't retrofit or repair even critical satellites anymore, since NASA was forced to decommission all the space shuttles, and Congress, in its infinite wisdom, slashed funding to design new ones. That's why our astronauts are forced to hitchhike to the International Space Station. Ah, the law of unintended consequences.
Well, thank you, Greg. And on that note, we're going to wrap it up for this week. The Friday News Dump for September 20th, 2013. I'm Francis Goodwin. This is Gregory Crawford behind the camera. That's Deborah Goodwin. We're recording or broadcasting to you from Stockbridge, Vermont. In the beautiful...
But for World News Trust.
Indeed. In the beautiful Green Mountains.
Wish you could be here.
See you next week.
Bye.